serious question.
Yeah.
Is The Godfather underrated, overrated, or perfectly rated?
I wouldn't say it's underrated.
I'd say it's appropriately rated.
Yeah.
Oh, make sure he's talking in the mic.
Appropriately. If I could talk, I'd be dangerous.
Welcome back to the Exchange Podcast. We had a bit of a fun start. We won't talk about that story I just talked about, but it is time to get started. We're starting a little bit early on a nice Saturday morning instead of Saturday afternoon because we all got to go to a baby shower.
Yeah, and those are always fun, but it has been a good week, and it is good to be back on the Exchange Podcast, and this is your host, Tom Paul Tipton. A lot of interesting stuff going on in the world right now. We talked a little bit about it last week. You know, everybody's fearing World War III. Kind of like Godfather. I don't think it's underrated, but I also think it's appropriately rated. This is why faith is so important to have. If your faith is in God, you know that the times are in His hands.
Yeah.
But some interesting stuff happened this week, sometime I think this week. The news breaks that the Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders,
Let's go.
has kicked China out of Arkansas.
Let's go.
Kicked him out like the unemployed husband, and
Jeez, wait, no.
kicked him to the curb. Hey, you know what? Chinese people are good people, but the Communist Chinese Party, CCC, and Xi Jinping need to go.
Winnie the Pooh?
No, it's Winnie the Flu.
Oh, that's true.
That'll probably get us banned, but
Oh,
Winnie
I'll
the
let you do
Flu, they're gone. So it's bye, Felicia.
It is. Do you know what movie that's from? Anybody? The person who says it is Ice Cube.
Yes. Is that not next Friday?
No, I don't believe so.
I remember the movie. You need a little bit more room. But so anyway, I was looking at something else. This happened back in June 14th, 2023. And it says Sarah Huckabee Sanders travels to Europe for first overseas trade mission as Arkansas governor. And so this was her when was she inaugurated? January?
I believe so.
So what she does is she uses, which is good. She goes out of town, right? So she starts to do all of these trade deals with Europe. And one of the first things she said is that she wanted Arkansas to not just compete against the surrounding states. She wanted Arkansas to compete on a global level.
Yeah.
So the first thing she does, which is good, she starts bringing in different businesses, or trying to bring them in to invest in Arkansas. But then, so after that happens, NBC News reports it, which you take that for a grain. Forbes reports it. But there, of course, NBC is talking about, is China really buying up U.S. farmland? And it says, here's what we found. Now, basically, NBC News is trying to put, lipstick on a pig. And what they're talking about is they're talking about how that they said that China, it says here, a review by NBC News of thousands of documents filed with the U.S. Department of Agriculture, however, shows very few purchases by Chinese buyers in the past year and a half. Fewer than 1,400 acres in a country with 1.3 billion acres of agricultural land. That sounds great on the face, right? I mean, because you're going, they don't own that much.
Yeah, but 1 acre.
Well, where is this land located?
And they bury that in this story just a tad bit, because they say, in fact, the total amount of U.S. agricultural land owned by Chinese interests is less than 0.03%. Now, at the very top line, it says state and federal lawmakers are pushing to regulate foreign ownership of U.S. real estate because of fears that Chinese entities are creating a national security risk by amassing swaths of U.S. farmland, some of it near sensitive sites. Now, that's all they say, sensitive sites.
Yeah, we all know what the sensitive sites are.
Because Forbes covers the same story, and Forbes actually says it, that they're doing it beside U.S. air bases.
Mm-hmm.
Also, our missile silos.
That's right, because most of those are right near Air Force bases.
Yeah.
And so, when was that we had the Chinese flyover?
That was earlier this year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So
with the spy balloon that we just allowed to mosey on over and take pictures of all of
which
them.
I still, spy balloon. I'm going. Was the guy up there with one of those? What were those? The oculars. He's wearing
yeah. Well, I thought it was like a drone style balloon, wasn't it?
It was. But I was going spy balloon. I mean, we haven't used that since the Revolutionary War. The Rangers, as a matter.
Hey,
of
listen,
fact.
it doesn't matter. We took it out the most American way we could. Okay.
Yeah, they're gonna have to paint a balloon on the side of the F-22.
But how was it? How long was it in the air before we decided to shoot it down?
It was a couple of days, right?
I think it was even longer than that because it came across
close to a week, was it not?
Came from China, then came across Canada, then drifted completely across the United States.
Listen, I just want to know what type of balloon you're making that can make that trek, because that's insane. Now that's where I got skeptical. I was like,
well, what they say that the camera on the, or not the camera, but it was you said the word
computer, the drone.
Yeah. I think they were the size of 2 school buses.
Oh, so they were huge.
They were big.
Okay.
They were big.
Well, I just it's always funny to me. We're talking about China still, and for good reason. But we're not saying that if you are a very rare Chinese entrepreneur from China coming over here and saying, "Hey, I want to build a factory here, and I'll employ your people, but it's for my company." That works. That 100% works. I mean, there are German companies out here that've got certain things running for them. There are English companies that have things running out here for them. We've got a lot of land. We've got a lot of real estate. Why not? It's when your State Department gets involved, where our State Department needs to step up and say, no. You are very limited to what you get to do. And the fact that me and Michael can't buy land near an Air Force base. We see the fences all the time. It's like, hey, by the way, you're right next to an Air Force base.
Well, I think I told you, I think I've mentioned it on here before when we did the Red Dawn episode. I was living in Sedalia, Missouri, which is where they've got Whitman's Air Force Base. And that was when Bill Clinton was still in office. And they signed that treaty that we would get rid of so many nuclear sites and Russia would get rid of so many nuclear sites.
Fair.
And they said that they knew American soldiers would not fire live rounds on American citizens. So what they did is they brought Russian soldiers here, and they sent American soldiers over there. And the reason was because at Whitman's was the base at that time that housed what we call it the Stealth, but I can't think of the actual the actual.
Is it the? Oh God.
They call it the Stealth bomber.
The F-117.
I believe that's it. Yeah.
Well, because now we've got the B-2, but if we're going
at that time, I think
further
it was,
back, it's got to be the B-1.
This would have been 95.
Yeah.
So 1995.
That's going to be it.
So at that time, Whitman's was the one that housed that. They would not allow people within, I think it was 100 feet of that Air Force base because of that bomber. But I remember, driving down the road with my dad, and I was only 15, 16, I think, at that time. I was, I was somewhere around the 14, 15. But anyway, I mean, you're seeing Russian troops march up and down the roads, and you're going, man, this feels like the Red Dawn
I don't like
movie
that.
where we're invaded.
Yeah.
And they were more than serious. Now, they could not stop American citizens from driving up and down the roads, but they were more than serious. You're not coming within this amount of, this distance of this Air Force base.
Right.
And like you said, we as American citizens can't just go buy land close to an Air Force base.
Well, and I'm sure if you did, you're going to be thoroughly checked.
Yeah.
They're not just going to allow Joe Schmo like.
Well,
they'll do background checks on me. They'll do what will end up happening to a citizen who does that, and I'll use me because this has happened multiple times. When I do background checks, not that I'm on a list, they will ask me, what are your intentions of buying land here? Oh, well, it's cheap here. Well, duh, nobody wants to buy it. It's cheap here, and I would like to set up my family generationally on this land for, however many acres, 50 acres. Then they'll ask me, well, I see your father went to prison. Do you have any inclinations of doing, anything against the government? Are you angry with the government for imprisoning your father? All these types of different questions. You'd be questioned to high heaven.
Well, now, earlier this year, I was doing some work on Jacksonville Air Force Base, or whatever the name of that Air Force Base is, but it's in Jacksonville, Arkansas. And the company I was working for, we were doing all the electrical for the new facility that they're building there.
Is that Camp Robinson?
No, it's
that's the Army base, right?
Little Rock,
Little Rock
Air Force.
Little Rock Air Force Base. And we had a couple of crews that was on the Air Force Base.
Yeah.
And I was just taking material to them.
Oh, you got checked a lot.
Well, I had to go through a background check, and I had to go in. They kept me where their guards stay while they're doing this background check. Once that happened, then I was the only person that could come on and off that Air Force Base. But every time I went on that Air Force Base, they didn't just wave me on.
Oh, yeah.
They would make me pull over, and then they would check through the truck.
Yep.
Now, they didn't do it when I was driving off, but they always did it. And I had to be on that Air Force Base, I don't know, several times that one day.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's what I look at. But see, also part of the story that's really frustrating is, this is why we've talked about the whole 2020 election being, we can believe what we want to believe about that election, but we also got the news yesterday that Sidney Powell is now going to confess, which I'm sure she's probably under a lot of scrutiny from the federal government. But they all wanted to look at the Dominion voting machines.
Dominion,
saying that's where the election was stolen. It wasn't stolen there. It was stolen in the mail-in ballots. If we're going to say, I want to say it like this: if we're going to say it was stolen, because they didn't do it in secret, they did it in plain sight. Because those states, such as Pennsylvania, and I don't remember how many more, like 5 or 6 more, they never amended their state the legislatures never amended those state constitutions to allow those mail-in ballots.
Right.
And when you look at how many American companies are working alongside and they're getting paid by the Chinese government to allow this, like Arkansas and other states are doing.
Yeah.
But here's the kicker. They are doing what they impeached Donald Trump over. They're not even reporting to the IRS what their earnings are.
Oh, Dominion?
No, these companies that are working alongside.
Allegedly,
yeah.
Well, so going back to the farmland here in Arkansas, the big problem I had with it is they're quote-unquote doing seed research. Well, why can you not do seed research in your own country?
Yeah.
China is a vast country.
It's a big country. There's a lot of land.
You can't tell me that you couldn't find 160 acres to do your seed research there. Just like they're doing viral research, I do think that it's a threat to our national security, and I agree with the governor for demanding that they be removed.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I can't grasp. It was like, why specifically do you need to come over here and do it? Or is it something so volatile? If there's some fallout, it's in America. We don't have to worry about it.
Right, and I think something that we mentioned while we were having our meeting, shout out to the Cantrell Starbucks. Not sponsored, but you guys are great. While we were there, I'm from California, and our big agricultural claim to fame is the almonds that we produce. We're the number one almond producers in the world in California. The number one soy producer in the world is Arkansas. And you guys do. When I first came out here, I was stunned at how much agriculture you guys do out here, because there's a lot of swamp. There's a lot of just gross, nasty wilderness out there that you guys have turned a lot of it into agriculture. What could, just from your opinion, what could you do with a seed research in a different country? Like, what does that do to a country's stability?
Well, if you can affect their food production, then you can cripple a country. If you can't feed your people, then you're done.
Exactly.
Well, Costa Rica, and Costa Rica kicked China out because of the fact that they would go in and take up all of the fishing ports, and then they wouldn't allow the Costa Rican people to fish off those ports. So even if we were needing to do that research, we don't have the best relation with China anyway.
Right.
Now, I think Canada is right behind China, and then right behind Canada is Mexico as far as who does the exact same thing. But it's a whole lot easier to keep our – number one, China is not going to attack – or Canada's not going to attack us. Mexico's not going to attack us.
No, we're too friendly, and we're Mexico's best customer.
But the thing is, with China, we already know everyone's pretty much on high alert that they're waiting with all this other stuff going on in the Middle East, and wait until the United States has our forces, because they were hoping it was going to happen in Ukraine. They're pretty certain it's going to happen with Israel. Just wait your time and then go invade in Taiwan. Then what does Taiwan do? What do? We can't do anything. So I do wonder if maybe some other governors don't follow suit and go, okay, they've got to get out, because this will affect their economy. Maybe, I don't know, maybe large enough that it prohibits them from being able to invade Taiwan.
I guess that's plausible. But, something I've never really understood is China has never been an ally, has never been a friend of the United States. And we as a country have become so greedy that we've allowed the dollar to rule our relationships. And,
yes.
We get in bed with the Chinese because they make stuff cheaply. But we're funneling money into one of the largest entities that would try to undermine our country or attack us. Yeah, it's so backwards.
Which why? Yeah. What we, the people of the United States, don't gain from that. What do our politicians gain from that?
Oh, because they're lining their pockets.
Yeah.
Let's not kid ourselves.
Right.
There's lots of money being thrown around, and
well, one of the biggest ones is Mitch McConnell. So we're not letting any of the Republicans off. I mean, it's not just Democrats. I mean, I think when we look at Mitch McConnell's heavily invested in China. It's not unfathomable to believe they stole an election, and the reason this, as Trump would call it, a witch hunt, is still going on, is because it's going to hurt those politicians. The unpardonable sin in politics is allow your constituents to prosper while the politicians suffer. And that's what he was doing. And that's pretty much what he's promising on doing if he gets back into office. So you're going. This is not a situation where this guy has done something that is wrong. What he's doing wrong is he's not playing ball by the what they call nepo babies. The nepotism babies. I mean, that's all that's going on here. Is he's hurting the good old boy club.
Yeah. He's not a member.
And so he's not. And when you look at his whole promise was make America great. I actually had a conversation with someone I work with, and she's about 20. I think she said she's about 27, 28 years old, and we were kind of talking about how. We kind of hit on this last week about the military-industrial complex. And was it General Yamamoto who said that if you invade the United States, you're going to find a citizen behind every blade of grass?
A rifle behind every blade of grass.
A rifle behind every blade of grass. And she was like I said, she said she's been doing a lot of research. Apparently, I don't know if at one point in time she had voted Democrat or was kind of raised.
Where is she from?
Okay, so, I say this because I don't want to make a broad blanket statement. But we've talked about this on here before.
Is this the girl from California?
No.
No, different one.
No, this girl is African American. She's the
one here in Arkansas, right?
Yeah. I work with her.
Yeah.
And she even said the common assumption is that if someone's black, they vote Democrat.
Yep.
Right? I mean, we've got the famous words of Joe Biden.
My dad hates that. Oh yeah.
Well,
yeah.
and for good,
if you don't vote for me, you're not black.
Yeah. So the common assumption is they're black, they vote Democrat.
Right.
And the Democrats have kind of taken that for granted. But she said that, everyone I ever talked to all said that Ronald Reagan was a great president. Obviously, this girl wasn't born then, right? She was born late 90s, early 2000s. And I said, well, I was vaguely old enough to remember the last 2.5 years of his presidency. And Donald Trump will also go down as one of the greatest presidents, simply because it was America First policy. And I think that when you look at what Sarah Sanders did by removing China out of Arkansas, hopefully other governors take notice of that and they do the same. Because that is an American First policy. Lincoln was American First, they assassinated him. JFK was American First, they assassinated him. Now, like we talked about, I mean, was it the one lone bullet from the warehouse? I don't think so. No pun intended, not by a long shot. But I do think that once you start dealing with the globalists' agenda, because they've got more money than you can imagine.
The phrase,
more money than God. Yeah. You start messing with their agenda, it becomes a spiritual thing. And the reason it becomes a spiritual thing is because now you are dealing with what we would call, the book of James says there are many antichrists that are in the world.
Right.
And that's what you're dealing with, because you're messing with an agenda. First off, you're messing with an agenda that is got to happen.
This isn't even like a crazy conspiracy that people run the world and you're just crazy. It's like, well, come on, people have money, and if us three had money and we could make a network like the Daily Wire, we conspired together, technically, versus the definition, we conspired to make a network, and
that's why conspiracy is not illegal.
Right. So we could do that. And I mean, on a small scale, that's what the Daily Wire did.
Yep.
They got together with a bunch of people who had money and said, well, I like this. Let's do it. Now they're making us Snow White. And you got these people who think, oh, well, you're just crazy, because who could do that on a large scale? Billionaires.
Well, go look up Vanguard or BlackRock.
They own each other.
Scary stuff.
Oh, yeah.
They own each other.
And they own an overwhelming majority of everything.
Well, Nashville, where I moved from, it is almost virtually impossible as an individual to buy property as an individual buyer in that city. It's almost impossible.
Right.
Within the city limits of Nashville.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean,
and it's primarily because of BlackRock and Vanguard.
Oh man, the swaths of residential property they've purchased just to keep
So you'll own nothing and love it, is what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, look, Sarah and I were blessed to get an opportunity to buy the house we bought. It's a fixer-upper. Every first house should be, I think, just to give.
Kind of like the Money Pit. No, I'm joking.
Yeah.
No, you ever watch the movie The Money Pit with Tom Hanks?
But at the end of the day, having that house is so nice, not just to have a house, and it sounds like I'm bragging because I am. It's nice.
Yeah.
When you get your own home,
right,
and you walk around in your backyard, in your front yard, in your garage, it's a different feeling than when you have to worry about, oh, am I stepping too loud because my downstairs neighbors are going to get upset? If the cops get called on me, my rent could go up in an apartment. that's insane. You don't get the say in on, oh, I want to paint the house, a turquoise blue,
right?
And I don't know why you would, but still, it's one of those things where having the freedom of owning your home versus renting is just so much nicer.
Right.
And when BlackRock and them buy those houses and they rent them out to people, they're just pretty much telling you, kind of like what we were talking about, if your social credit score goes down, why wouldn't BlackRock just say, hey,
well, let me ask this, and this is kind of going down a little bit of a trail, and I don't want to get off the subject too much, but this, you mentioning BlackRock, and this could probably fall under the guise of conspiracy theory, but kind of wonder, you know, our country was not founded to have land taxes. And you can have your mortgage paid off, but if you fail to pay land taxes, they'll come and
They'll
take
still
the house.
take it.
I wonder, was that kind of the whole idea to begin with?
Well, you never truly own anything.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't pay your taxes, they're going to take
Mhm.
that. They'll take your cars.
Yeah.
They'll take. I mean, you don't truly own
Right.
anything.
Right.
This is why I'm on this podcast, because I'm going to bring up another pop culture reference. It's not Star Wars. It's from the land of Japan. It's called One Piece, and it is a long story. The manga is about 1,000 chapters plus. It's crazy long, but a lot of the times in that story, it's about pirates. And the pirates are actually the good guys, and the world government are the bad guys, because a lot of pirates just want to be free.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you obtain that freedom is when nobody submits to you, because then you're obligated to them, and you don't submit to anyone else. And I think that is a good jumping off point for me to say that's pretty much when Christ says, if you take on my yoke, it's light. It's not. There's more freedom in submitting to Christ than there is to submitting to other humans. As a father, as a soon-to-be father, I will be under submission of taking care of my family even more so.
Right.
But whereas if I didn't have them, now I'm not saying I don't want them, but like if I didn't have them, I'm not obligated to that. And if I don't have this government breathing down my neck for my taxes, I'm free from that. The freedom, there is no such thing as true freedom except through Christ.
Right.
When we all say like, oh, I don't want to pay taxes, I don't want to pay
Well,
this.
that's why Galatians says it is for freedom that he has set us free.
Right.
And going back, I mean, Jesus did say, render to Caesar's what is Caesar's, and unto God's what is God's. And I don't mind paying taxes for the luxury of having police officers that are capable of doing things that the rest of us who are just working normal jobs can't do. I mean, years ago when, farming, and kind of getting back on what, when farming was, when America was primarily an agricultural society, if you were farming, you're getting raided or something happens, you can protect yourself, you can protect your family. But as we have moved further and further away from being an agricultural society, and people are going more into the with the industrial age and all that, and now the technological age, people are I guess some people are staying home and working remotely. Mm-hmm. But I had a conversation, actually, amazingly enough, and we kind of look at what's going on with the Middle East, and we're seeing all this anti-Semitism that's on the rise. And I do think that is on the rise. But sometimes I wonder if the anti-Semitism is not more of a cowardice, because a lot of people have been taught to hate masculinity. And so they know just how closely tied to Israel that we are. I don't want to fight a war, but I also know that sometimes that may be necessary. And their life of their life of arts and crafts, that everything's going to go good, don't worry about being inconvenienced, that's now being threatened. And so I'm wondering too if maybe some of it is not as much, it's not anti-Semitism as much as they're seeing that the lie they've been told.
Who's they? Sorry.
Well, a lot of, I mean, the workforce, for example, is very low. You don't even, years ago, in order to rise in the ranks at a job, you had to work hard. You had to be, as Paul McCartney said in Live and Let Die, when you have a job to do, you got to do it well.
Right.
Okay, that was a different generation. In today's day and time, all you got to do is just show up to work, and because so many people don't want to hold down a job.
No.
And
all that free COVID money convinced people that they just didn't want to work.
Well, the free COVID money, yeah, and you couldn't convince them that's not a good idea, because what you're doing is you're pumping in, as we talked about the other night at the meeting, the Federal Reserve is because there's not even any more gold that backs up. Our money's off the gold standard.
Well, and a large portion of money now is just digital.
Yeah.
It's made up. There is no actual currency to back it.
Right.
If you have a large sum of money in a bank and you go and you say, I'd like to withdraw all of my money, guess what? They're not going to be able to do it.
No.
They can't hand you cold, hard cash because it exists in a computer.
Now, their excuse is to keep from having another run on the bank, which caused the 1929 stock market crash.
All right, you can call it whatever you want,
Yeah.
but the simple fact is that money doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Wasn't earlier this year a couple of banks in California were getting sued because of how much money they just...
They collapsed.
Yeah, that's what it was. They didn't get
They
sued.
collapsed.
Yeah, so that's just kind of going to your point, Mike. So.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, when you don't have a standard to back it, and then the federal government, we need more money, let's just print some more.
Yeah.
It only devalues the money even further. And so we've created a cycle of devaluing our own money.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm getting rich, but at the same time, no, you're not.
No.
I mean, you...
No, well, I want to say it was during the Great Depression. Everybody, and I'm not opposed. I've got some investments in silver, so I'm not opposed to any of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to say it was during the Great Depression that they made a law. It's not a constitutional law, but it could be reinforced because it was never repealed. That you can only own, I think it's like up to $17.42 is what you can own in silver.
Which is nothing.
Nothing.
Does it
Absolute-
adjust with inflation?
That's not. It's not even an earring anymore.
No, well, I mean, no, it does, and that's always
Even if
the
it did.
argument about being invested in gold and silver is it's a hedge against inflation because, as you said, when the dollar was backed by the gold standard, a dollar was actually a dollar.
Yeah.
It was Richard Nixon who took us off the gold standard. After Richard Nixon took us off the gold standard, and again, there's another American first president who they attacked. That was a boneheaded idea to take us off the gold standard because after he does it, then the United States immediately, we start seeing inflation, which Jimmy Carter was a horrible president. But
I never hear good things about him.
well, I will say one good thing. He's better than what we have in office right now. Okay, I will say that. Not by much, but just a little bit better.
Well, it's getting to where you just have to show up to work.
Are
you breathing? That's the standard we've set for the presidency now. Are you alive?
Well, it's the standard nationwide. I mean, and that's what I mean. I don't know if a lot of that's going back to that. I don't know if a lot of what we're seeing going on is anti-Semitism as much as it's just, I hate to say it, it's cowardice.
Well, and I think a large portion of this is anti-Americanism.
Yes.
The world, a large portion of the world dislikes America.
Yeah.
And who's our strongest ally in the Middle East? So of course they're going to jump on the bandwagon.
Yeah.
That's why China and Russia are so anti-Israel.
Yeah.
Is because they know that they play a large role with the United States.
Right.
And so they're going to look for every opportunity to belittle them or attack them.
Yeah.
Because it's an attack on us. It's just as if, I wanted to affect you, so I'd go after the people closest to you.
Right.
It's no different, just on a global scale.
It's evil villain stuff.
Yeah.
That's really what it is. You
Like
gotta,
Dr. Evil?
yeah, you just got to. No,
No, he was actually cooler, wasn't
he was cooler. I with everything that's happening in the Middle East that we've talked about, and you said it's not anti-Semitism, it's really just cowardice, and you said it's anti-American. It all started from me growing up, because I'm the youngest one on the podcast, as I have pointed out multiple times.
Yeah, rub it in. Why don't you?
But my knees hurt this morning, so don't worry.
Oh, it only gets worse from
Yeah,
there.
for me, it all started with the teachers telling us to, if somebody's bothering you, go tell the teacher.
Yeah.
Because we've talked about this, probably one of the first few episodes we've talked about this, but you weren't here, so I'm just going to reiterate it. A lot of times when something bad happens at school and a kid, your kid's probably told to go tell the teacher instead of, handling business.
Mm-hmm.
You were probably raised, and I know I was raised to, somebody hits you, you defend yourself.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of people, I think this goes into the cowardice, the anti-American. A lot of what America used to be was, if you punch me, I'm punching you back.
Yeah.
I'm punching you harder.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people are saying we don't need to get involved. We're a bunch of bullies. We shouldn't be bullying people. We shouldn't. And at the end of the day, when we show our bellies to China to come buy property on our land, when we decide to allow people to speak ill of our allies that we swore to protect,
Right.
From our own country,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying lock people up. You have freedom of speech. You get that freedom. But
Right.
but the reality is that you also deserve to be criticized for saying, well, Israel's evil. Well, listen, I'm going to let them handle their business, but that's still my ally. I need to watch their back because we did make that promise to them.
Well, our founders, George Washington specifically believed, and there are writings where he talks about that, and this is paraphrasing, that he believed the purpose of the founding of the United States was, in fact, to see the nation of Israel come back together, because they knew what the Bible talked about, that Israel would come back together. So our founders believed that. And a scripture, and I know we've probably got about 10 minutes, give or take.
No,
But it says in Daniel chapter 10 and verse 12, and you brought this up, Michael, the other night. And it says, then he said to me, fear not, Daniel, for from the first day that you set your heart to understand and humbled yourself before your God. There's the first step. Now, this is Michael the archangel who's talking to Daniel at this. And the first step is, he says, for from the first day that you set your heart to understand, he meant to understand what God's precepts were. And then he says, and humbled yourself. So the conjunction is he understands and he humbles himself before your God, not before anyone else, not before the king of Babylon, because that's who they're in. That's who they are in. Actually, it's not Babylon. They had come out. The Medo-Persian Empire had taken Babylon over at this point, so they were in slavery to Persia. And then before your God, your words have been heard, and I have come because of your words. So he humbles himself. He understands God's. Then Michael's dispatched. But then he says in verse 13, the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days. But Michael, I'm sorry, this wasn't Michael who was talking to him. It was Gabriel who was talking to him. But Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, for I was left there with the kings of Persia. So Michael, who is the prince of Israel, is fighting and combating the prince of Persia. Who's Persia? Persia's modern day Iran. How did Iran get their name? Iran means land of Aryan. How did they become the land of Aryan?
World War II.
World War II. Who does this? Why does he do this? Up until World War II, the Muslims never really hated the Jews as much. They actually, because after the Great Dispersion and Rome disperses them, they don't actually, the Jews, the Muslims and the Jews actually lived, because it was primarily the people living in Jerusalem that Rome removed them. Mm-hmm. And they removed them because they put in the Palestinians, which the Palestinians is not a real state. It is the Latin form of the Greek word for Philistine. So they did it in order to insult the Jewish people. So the Muslims actually had a decent relationship with the Jews still living in that area at the time.
There was quite a few documents from the Ottoman Empire talking about how it was pretty decent for Jews living in said Ottoman Empire.
It was. Now, what the Muslims did is they let Jerusalem just go to, just go by the wayside.
I mean, it wasn't their thing.
It wasn't their thing. And so they declared it as a land of Islam.
Yeah, I mean,
there's a lot of things now. They declare Spain as being.
Yeah, but I mean, the Ottoman Empire was huge, right?
Well, they were. But guess who? Do you remember when Obama said that? Talking about how many, he really in his statement made it out as though the Muslims were some of the biggest contributors to the founding of the United States. You remember that in one of his speeches?
Mm.
So they want to claim that America is a land of Islam.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Missed the mark just a hair there.
So here's what you got. This goes back. I mean, I think it's really good that we remove the government of China out of our and thank God Sanders did this. Thank God Governor Sanders did this. More governors need to start following suit.
I don't see why any foreign entity, especially one, the land here in Arkansas was purchased by Kim China, which is part of their Defense Department. Why we would allow that to happen?
Yeah.
I mean, what could possibly go wrong?
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with her. She
Yeah.
said it was a direct threat to our national security.
Yeah, that's right.
And so, glancing on another topic, like I said, I think the war in the Middle East has really allowed anti-Americanism to shine, seeing as we're their strongest ally, and they're our strongest ally in the Middle East. But I don't know if you saw Russia's going to start testing nuclear weapons again. And we are apparently going to test a nuclear weapon in Nevada to test our sensors that are supposed to detect nuclear blasts.
So not the movie, but the Ronald Reagan program of Star Wars sounds awful good right about now.
Yeah. So
I
I think that they're using the conflict in the Middle East as an excuse to ramp up a lot of this, I don't know what, military might, like we're going to start testing nuclear weapons again. And they had always, I guess some of the rumors had been that they might try to use a small tactical nuke with Ukraine, because Russia, despite its size and its military, is having a hard time with small.
Well, their people don't even want to fight.
Now, who's okay, I'm following you now. Okay, so Russia's is talking about using the tactical nuke on Ukraine.
Well, that was the fear of a lot of intelligence agents here.
Okay.
It was that they were Putin would become desperate enough to utilize a tactical nuke in order to subdue Ukraine. But I think it's really telling that we're now doing tests to ensure our capability of detecting a nuclear blast. And then Russia's going to start testing nuclear weapons again.
So, no, to answer your question, no. Correct me if I'm wrong. Bill Clinton got rid of Star Wars.
Oh man,
Did he not, Michael?
That I'm not sure.
I think he did. I think because the Iron Dome that Israel has, that's
Based
we're
off
actually
of-
we're the ones who gave them the we're the ones who basically sold them the technology to build that.
right?
And it works out great. But the
would've
thing
thought?
is, do I think World War III and the nuclear bombs are going to start going off? I don't. But see, China does want also, as well as Russia. They hate Israel in the Middle East. It goes back to when it was Daenerys, I believe, who sent the Jews back to Israel in the Old Testament. Many historians believe that he sent them back because they were a buffer state between he and the Egyptians. Now, it doesn't really matter why he did it. He did it because God's prophecy, God told that was their land. He gave that land to Abraham. Mm-hmm. And if a Muslim or an Arab will be honest with you, they will tell you that land belongs to the Jews. They know that. Even their Quran says that land was given to them, and it was given to Abraham. So this is why it is so dangerous that many of our politicians are in bed with the Chinese Communist government, because American dollars are going, they're getting rich, but they're not just hurting us. Our tax dollars are going to support our enemies to wage these wars.
Yeah.
Trump understood that. Trump affected that greatly.
No new wars during his presidency.
There was not one war, I would say that what's going on right now would not be going on if he were in office right now.
It's
when you have a weak president, the world runs rampant.
Yeah.
Our enemies run rampant.
Yeah.
Because there's no consequence And that's part of the reason that Ronald Reagan was so effective is because they thought he was a crazy cowboy. And if he said something, he was going to do it.
Yeah.
When he said, a little crazy.
Well, and that's kind of going back to what I was talking about with the Prince of Persia. I mean, Iran is modern day Persia.
Right.
And when you look at, God tells Abraham, to paraphrase, he says, whatever someone does to you, I'm going to do to them. And when the Prince of Persia allows Israel to go back to their homeland, he allows only a certain amount. He allows a portion of Israel to go back. He doesn't allow all of them. Well, you look at Iran. Iran is still there, but it's just a portion of what they used to be. And so they make this deal with Hitler because they want to call themselves the land of Aryan, because they want to say, hey, we're favorable to the Aryan cause, and so Hitler knew that many of the Jews were leaving Israel at that time, and they were either trying to come to the United States or they were trying to go to Israel. And so he knew that, so he wanted to make it hard. So he goes and starts making all of these alliances with many of the Arabs.
Which at the time, there was not on the map, at least. There was no Israel.
There was no Israel, not as a nation. They don't come back together until 1946 or 7.
Right.
Which I had glanced on this before. Excuse me. With the reason that Hitler did that is because after World War I, Germany was crippled.
Yeah.
A wheelbarrow to buy a loaf of bread.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the Ottoman Empire was dismantled.
Right.
And so they had lost their empire.
Yeah.
And so Hitler played on that. Look, I mean, we lost out. We've been punished far too severely.
Mm-hmm.
You have been too.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how, he got into bed with them.
Yeah.
But it was, he was trying to use their mutual circumstance for his benefit.
That's exactly right. And so the whole thing is that's what makes things right now, as I would say, dangerous, because America is getting to a point, and a conversation that I was having with someone, they were having a friend with somebody that works for one of the banking systems, and they said that the digital currency, which was mentioned earlier, will probably witness a 1929 style crash. That's to redefine who owns what.
Yeah.
Just like it was, when we had the crash in 1929, up to that point, Americans were not paying an income tax.
Yeah.
And so what do they do after one of the first things they do is they institute the IRS. And now look at what they're doing with the IRS. 87,000.
Yeah, and we're going to arm them all.
They're armed. That's a small army.
That's weird.
Yeah.
And that was the thing that I had that conversation with. And I want to be careful because I'm not calling. But the importance of the Second Amendment is for those kind of shenanigans right there.
Right.
Our founders knew. They said that men are no angels. They knew that.
Mm-hmm.
They knew that there are people sitting within. Why? Because our founders were Christian in their principles. They were Christian in their faith. And they knew that scripture that said, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against every principality.
Mm-hmm.
And just like I said, you've got the Prince of Persia. That's who's stirring all of this stuff up right now. And it's driven by that spirit of the Antichrist. So our founders understood there are principalities that want to control the human race. So humans need to have a way to defend themselves. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying take up arms. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is when somebody wants to talk about the Second Amendment and how bad it is, no, you better remember the Second Amendment is there for our for our good.
Mm-hmm. Well, so look at what Israel's instituting now. It took a terrorist attack where at least 1,200 people were killed.
Yeah.
But now they're trying to arm every citizen.
Yeah.
Well, they're not trying to. I believe every Israeli citizen has to do service. So
they're trying to arm all of the
ones.
Yeah, I'm saying they're probably getting those who already left, and they're probably just saying here's a rifle.
Israel lives by a creed: never again. Every Israeli will tell you that, and what that means is after the Holocaust.
Oh yeah.
After the Holocaust, never again. They will not. They are not going to permit themselves to be wiped off the face of the earth.
Right, like they recalled Gal Gadot, the actress who plays Wonder Woman. She's going to go be Wonder Woman in real life.
Well, you know, she's like crazy good
yeah.
at that stuff. She was trained. I think she even trained soldiers at one point.
She's really big in that. Taylor Swift's like head bodyguard, whose former Israeli military just got shipped.
For the love of God, don't tell me Taylor Swift's going over there.
Hey,
No.
you watch your mouth. It's America's sweetheart.
For the Prince of Persia.
You put a Taylor Swift concert in the Middle East right now. Peace, baby. I'm telling you right now.
No, I'd be voting for the nuclear bomb.
Swifties are coming in hot. That's an army right there.
I don't know if y'all also saw, kind of, sort of getting back on topic.
Sorry.
But, all right, we had a Navy warship that shot down 3 missiles and some drones that were launched from Yemen that were launched north towards the direction of Israel.
Today?
This actually happened a day ago.
Oh, I didn't hear about that.
Yeah.
I heard
2
that there
days ago.
was.
Our
I
Navy
heard.
ships?
Well, I heard that there was an American base that was attacked.
No. So, U.S. Navy warship near Yemen intercepts multiple missiles, U.S. officials say. So this was actually 2 days ago. But
I don't know how I didn't hear about that one.
Yeah.
We've got 2 aircraft
Well,
carriers
what about
in the area.
what about the Green Berets that the White House doxed?
I don't know.
You didn't hear about that?
Oh, they doxed them? Oh, is that
Over
what
in
that
Israel.
picture was?
Over in Israel, yeah, the White House doxed them.
Poor guys.
And well, I mean, here the question is why. You know, it's always going to come back to why. You know, I mean, because the Green Berets are typically, when they're sent in, they're always sent in before any other land force is sent in. And of course, the Israeli fighting force works closely with the Green Berets. I think they get a lot of training from the Berets and SEALs, don't they? If my memory serves. I can't be sure on that, but I think they do.
I would imagine so. I mean, if you're going to train an elite military force, who better to do it than our elite forces?
Because we've got that that marketed.
But you know, special forces typically are sent in. They're going to blend in better. They're not going to be clean cut wearing uniforms. They're going to be.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, because I know a lot of them, and you'll see them running around with beards and civilian clothes, and a lot of that is because if some military target or something or base is taken over, they kind of can just blend into society, regroup, reform, come back, and take it back.
Well, so a lot of what they do is intelligence gathering as well.
Yeah,
and if you're sitting out there in your OCP uniform, clean cut, you're definitely going to stand out.
What was it? It's because in the so now a lot of special forces will have like the beards and everything, right? Because kind of like you said, blend in with the area of the Middle East. And then I guess a lot of those like terrorist attacks were happening in Europe in the 80s and the 90s and stuff. And when we would send guys in, there was the joke that said like, if you saw a guy with a pencil mustache, sunglasses on, and a button-up shirt with a Rolex
Tom
on,
Cruise.
You're in trouble.
Well, I not Tom Cruise. Who was the other guy that was in there that he got killed in Top Gun? Anyway, but he
Goose?
Goose, that's it. It was Goose. That's who it was.
Talk to me, Goose.
No, but I did hear this one guy. He said he was on a ship about that time, and he said, we're all standing in line at the chow line, and he said all of a sudden here comes these guys in civilian clothes, and he said they're just busting through the line getting food. He said they're not standing in line. He said they're just walking up front of everybody, and people are standing aside. And he said, first I thought, man, these guys are rude. What are these civilian contractors doing? And like somebody who had been in there for a while, they're not civilian contractors. Just stay out of their way.
Yeah,
it's probably Delta or somebody else. The kind of cream of the crop.
Yeah, and so it's like they don't have time to wait in line. Go ahead and get.
There was a video on YouTube of this because the military has their own reporters and everything. Kind of reminds me of what is that movie? Full Metal Jacket. But they've got the guy out there and he's interviewing this soldier who he thinks is a soldier. He's got a beard and everything. The guy's like taking his jacket off and everything, and he takes it off and he's got a patch of a Grim Reaper on it, and you can see the arm, like the reporter's face recognizes the patch. And I don't know what you have to do to have just symbolism show a soldier fear, But I mean, this guy went pale when he was talking to him. He's like, "Okay, well, interview's over. We'll have a good day, sir."
Well, I mean, it's like we've got an individual at the church who's former Green Beret, and on his arm he's got the Green Beret tattoo. You know, and it's just if you have not earned that, you don't want to wear it. You know, of course, I mean, I think anything. You need to earn it, but kind of going back, I mean, it's, I think, I like I said, I kind of hope that kicking them out of Arkansas has a monopoly effect.
Where other states follow?
Yeah, and I also think too that, I'm wondering if just exactly what does this mean as far as within the continental United States, I mean, because I think there's going to be people who are opposed to it. The people that are really benefiting from it, they're going to be opposed to it.
And they'll find a way to kind of twist it online to make the common folk think it's a bad thing that we're getting rid of them.
Yeah.
Oh, they'll drum up something where it's xenophobic,
racist.
They're doing something surely because they're Chinese, and it has nothing to do with that. It's the fact that it's a foreign interest,
right,
who is in direct opposition to our country,
right,
operating on our soil.
Yeah.
I mean, it blows my mind that you can't see the writing on the wall.
Right.
Like, we're going to allow the enemy to basically take us over from the inside.
Sure, but the writing on the wall is just we all know this. Everybody reads the headline, and that's all they read. And so when the headline reads xenophobic governor of Arkansas kicks out research facility from China or whatever, give a good article headline, and people are going to go, "Oh, how terrible. How terrible."
You're kind of saying fifth column, Michael. The fifth column. You know what that is?
Not particularly.
So I think it was in the early 1900s. There was a civil war going on in Portugal, I think. And there was a general, and his commander comes up wanting updates on what's going on. And he says, "I have 4 columns surrounding the city, east, west, north, and south." He said, "But it's my 5th column that's going to take it." And he said, "Where's your 5th column?" He said, "My 5th column's inside the city."
Yeah, it's already there.
Yeah.
They just don't know it yet.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I mean, that's kind of the thing. I think that Governor Sanders, and I hope other governors follow suit, I think they're kind of seeing that. I think they're kind of seeing it's a 5th column.
Yeah.
And they got to go. They've got to go. It's not xenophobic. It's, I mean, it's like the whole thing going on down at the border. All those people coming across the border are not innocent people just looking for work.
Well, so one of the other things that I find concerning is there are women and children, but a lot of the people that we have fleeing to Western countries or the United States are men.
Yeah.
And they're fighting age men.
Yeah.
I mean,
People get confused by that phrase, and I don't get it. It's so simple. These are young men who, if riled up enough, 100 of them, they're going to take down a small town.
Well, yeah, because what's the typical cutoff for the military?
35.
35?
Like, you can't sign up after 35, or there's
I think the
conditions.
United States Army did increase it.
They did for a period where it was like 42, but I think they've dropped it back down.
They have, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, now I know in World War II they were taking guys in their 40s.
Well, look, you get desperate enough.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Germany.
In Afghanistan, a lot of the Afghans, I mean, you would talk about some of the men were in their 60s.
Well, I think Russia's kind of dealing with that right now, aren't they?
But, like Afghans fighting against the Taliban, there was one, he would have to use like a cane, but he'd pick up an AK-47. I mean, when things get bad enough, if you're able-bodied or even remotely, if you're able to pull a trigger.
Yeah.
Well,
it's kind of like, I was talking to my dad about that, who's a Vietnam veteran. He said, if it got bad enough, he said, if we were truly being invaded, he said, if it got bad enough, he said, I'd find some place to hunker down.
Yeah, you'd have
take
to
as many out as I could until they kill me.
Right. I mean, that's
I mean, and that's kind of the thing.
That's how our country was built, though.
Yeah.
Well,
that's kind of what I was talking. I mean, you go back to the 1920s with 30s with Elliot Ness.
Yeah.
Our country at that time was just like Mexico is right now. We didn't have a cartel, but we had a crime syndicate, which was the same thing. And you had Elliot Ness with the Untouchables, and he's like, hey, this comes to an end now.
Yeah. I find it really ironic that they also came to Arkansas.
Don't get me started. Don't get me started.
Here.
I'm not.
We're gonna do an episode on that one day.
I'm not doing it.
Why
I'm not talking about Nope, we're not talking about Arkansas because Arkansas is dangerous. If we talk about it on this podcast too soon.
No. That's why I opened it up with what I did. She went to Europe to start bringing in new jobs. She's trying to open Arkansas up to the rest of the world.
Arkansas. You see, that's the problem, is that they want to keep it closed because Arkansas is a safe haven for them. And I'll talk about that later. Good Lord. But today has been a wonderful exchange. It has been a wonderful exchange. And then they're trying to rile me up because I have
before we go off on that subject, we might do that one other time. But it has been a good exchange. And, I think, again, I'll always say, in the last few minutes we got, like I always say, the importance is that you put your faith in God.
Mm-hmm.
God's going to take care of his people. I'm not saying times won't get trying, times won't get hard. I'm not even saying we might not die in the process, because many people do. Mm. But we can put our faith solely in God, because God is truth and God is faithful.
Yep.
That's all we have. That's all we have to remember is God is faithful.
Yep. Michael?
I was going to say you can't put your faith in man.
Right.
Because no matter how hard I try, ultimately I will let you down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm fallible.
Yeah.
You have to put your faith in something that's infallible.
That's right.
And then, as the Bible says, you'll have a peace that transcends human understanding.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right.
And the Bible doesn't say that you won't face trials and tribulations. It says you will.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it's, if you have that peace, then you can face anything.
He says, take courage.
Exactly.
He says, don't let your heart be troubled. He said, because he tells us, I'll go with you all the way to the end of the earth. And he says, I've overcome the world. Anyway, glad everyone's back. We hope to see you back. Leave likes and comments in the comments section. If there's something you would like to hear us talk about, look, if you want to join in on the exchange and you want to give an opinion, we'll read them. We'll answer them. We would love to hear back from you. Thank you for being here.